Hey YouTube, massive patch just dropped with Helldivers. This is day 63 of their like big overhaul of the entire game, trying to bring more fun back to the game. And this is kind of like the culmination of like just buffing tons of things. We're just gonna quickly go over. I've been playing for like the last 8 hours, and I just want to kind of go over what changed and like how does it actually perform in game, and like what have I noticed. We've been playing a collection of bugs and bots. We've basically been doing one operation of bots, one operation of bugs, going back and forth, trying out everything as much as possible. We'll try and go through all the weapons and stratagems that they have changed. All right. First, big winner here would be the Liberator Penetrator. Just better across the board. Better magazine, less recoil. It seems like they're trying to, reduce how inaccurate they sometimes feel, especially with horizontal recoil. It'll still have a vertical kick, but side-to-side recoil is reduced, I think, by 30% off the top of my head. Good change across the board. Liberator Penetrator is feeling A-OK. For those that were like not a huge fan of like just having to reload so much, it's feeling a lot better. On bugs and bots, you're still going to want to go for like those weak spots on bugs and bots for ARs in general, and maybe not full auto fire all the time, but ARs are continuing to see more improvements over time and just become more like user-friendly, which is good. Liberator Carbine received less horizontal recoil, and I believe it got and it also got a reload buff as well, so it reloads a little bit faster than its alternative, the normal Liberator. Good changes. I still would prefer to use the normal Liberator in most situations, just because I don't really utilize the fire rate. I tend to be a burst fire or semi-automatic player in some situations. Only it's very rare that I'm like holding down the trigger when it's an enemy right in front of me. Tenderizer got a 850 round per minute speed, and with the magazine capacity of 35, it actually feels fairly good. But like with most ARs, like I'm saying, I'm normally just burst firing or semi-automatic, especially on your bot missions. You're aiming for the weak points. Full autoing their weak point is not really the best, just because it still kicks like a mule, and you're probably moving quite a bit. So Tenderizer feels nice, but yeah, like I feel like the increased fire rate really just makes you go through your reserves that much faster. So I don't know how much I'm actually going to use it with my way of playing. Adjudicator continued to get more buffs to kind of differentiate itself from the Liberator Penetrator. Most recently, they upped the damage of Liberator Penetrator, and a lot of us were kind of like, well, what's the point of the Adjudicator? Now they've recently increased the Adjudicator a little bit more, 30 round magazine, less horizontal recoil. It feels good. It kind of depends on what kind of player you are. I think in most situations, I would probably lean more towards the Adjudicator, but there's definitely those situations where I want to run a gun more, and then having to deal with more recoil is not what I want to have to deal with. So Liberator Penetrator is kind of the better bet. Kind of interesting. I like it. No changes to marksman rifles, no changes to SMGs, no changes to shotguns, no changes to explosive weapons, even though I would have enjoyed a little bit more to the Eruptor, since I think the crossbow is handily beating it at the moment. Would really like to see something to the Eruptor still. Plasma Punisher received, all plasma weapons received a change to how they work. They have a very fast velocity to start off, but their drag coefficient is quite high, so they quickly drop to the ground. There's a time where I was firing it today where I aimed right at a distance, like perpendicular with the ground, and it dropped to 50 meters, and then I arced it at 45 degrees, and it went to the exact same point. Just kind of trying to illustrate to like you guys that like basically because of it, it drops like a rock after a certain amount of distance traveled, which is kind of funny. Some people like the change, some people don't. It's more user-friendly, but you can't lob it over cover as easily as you once could. So I've seen some negatives there. I still feel as if the Plasma Punisher is not doing enough damage compared to especially the Purifier, which we're going to get to a little bit later. Plasma Punisher is taking like 5 shots to kill a Devastator, which with the new fire rate of 100 rounds per minute, it's doing a lot faster, but you go through your ammo so much faster. 8 rounds capacity with only 8 backup mags. You go through that so fast. Just like the Scorcher. Scorcher got a fire rate increase to 350. No damage increase necessarily. 5 rounds extra in the magazine. You do notice the fire rate increase. It is deadly, especially with the full auto mode, but it just kind of helps you get through that ammo that much faster. Technically, it got 10 rounds extra because of basically the ammo conversion of like 1 less mag, but 5 more shots per mag. But yeah, the Scorcher needs more backup rounds. Their identity of wanting it to just be like a high DPS weapon, it's not exactly what I wanted for the Scorcher, but I'm sure there's going to be some people that really enjoy it and it's fun to use, but you're probably only going to be bringing it if you're someone that has a supply backpack, or, you know, you're someone who is always on the search for ammo. Purifier is a huge winner of this patch, probably the biggest overall. It only has a 1 second fire rate, or like maximum, and you can fire it actually at a maximum of like every 0.1 seconds. So if you have a really fast trigger finger, you can fire it even faster than the Scorcher, which is hilarious. It does less damage. Obviously, if you don't charge it, that's 50% of its total damage. And then it does 100% somewhere in between the 0.1 seconds and 1 second. And then once you get to the 1 second, it immediately gets a huge damage buff and an AoE buff. It's really easily noticeable because the visual of the explosive changes once you fully charge it. And it makes a nice satisfying click sound when it does that. So I would definitely be trying to either do a 0.1 second shot or a 1 second shot. Don't really do anywhere in between. It's kind of a waste, unless you have to take the shot because maybe the enemy's getting too close. Purifier just feels like a better Scorcher, better Plasma Punisher in some ways. The fire rate is really good. I've been loving it for bugs and bots. My initial impression is like, I think it could be S tier for both bugs and bots. It's really good. The AoE is very satisfying. The fire rate is very good. The durable damage and raw damage is very good. You're 3-tapping a charger's butt. Very often you're 2-tapping Nursing Spear. I think it's like a 2 to 3 tap for a Bile Spear, depending on if you're hitting the green sides, like the squishy bits. Yeah, just very good. Very good. I think it's 3-tap for Brood Commanders, 2-tap for Devastators on average, kills the Radiators of tanks within like a 4 or 5 shots. Like, really good weapon at the moment. Highly recommend using it. It is a lot better and more usable. And I think even for people that don't like charge weapons, you can enjoy it to some extent as well. So highly recommend it. Don't worry, Dominator was not changed. Yes, it's out of the explosive category, but it was never actually an explosive weapon. It was just put there because of the way they describe it, of a jet-propelled round. It never should have been an explosive category. It was always just like basically a DMR with like some weird, you know, bolter-like, bullet that is like rocket assisted. So anyways, going into secondary weapons, the Verdict went up to medium pen, which is awesome. Really good for bug missions, killing your Hive Guardians and your Brood Commanders, just like that much easier and faster, which is awesome. And then another huge winner is the Senator. This thing is 3-tapping Hulks in the eye. It's insane. It's so good. It didn't really change that much on bug missions other than it's going to be more proficient versus your medium pen targets because it's not matching the armor anymore. So it technically got a 50% buff, but in a lot of those situations, I'm just using the Verdict. I prefer it. But the Senator is really good. You're not really going to be like sitting there shooting a charger's leg just before people are like, oh my God, that means you can kill a charger. Yeah, but it's gonna be quite a few reloads. I think it's somewhere around like 20 shots or something. I haven't done the math or tested it fully yet, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's not gonna be great. Like, imagine how many shots it takes the heavy machine gun to not only strip the leg but then kill the charger. The Senator is just gonna take even longer. It's not gonna right. Stim pistol is more usable now. They reduced the bloom and they increased the bullet velocity by, I think it's like 2.5 times, making it just way more usable on teammates. So highly recommend checking that out. Really strong, good option. Other than that, that was it for that. We have the Frag Grenade, which the fuse time, it was actually just doubling of damage, went to 500. They didn't change the shrapnel, but it is noticeable. The explosive damage is really noticeable, and it brings it like basically in line with the impact. And you might be like, what's the point of the Frag Grenade instead of the impact? The penetration changes, and also the immediacy of the impact versus the fuse time of a frag. Explosive, high explosive, goes to 800 damage. Definitely anything in that radius is dying, or at least, other than like Hulks and charges and stuff like that. But if it's within that radius, it is dying. And if you can utilize like pulling up the pin and trying to cook the grenade, very useful. Incendiary grenade definitely got a nice little bump above the incendiary impact, which is nice, but I would probably prefer the incendiary impact in a lot of situations still. But good changes overall. Throwing knife, still can't pick them up, unfortunately, but you get 20 in reserve now, which is crazy. That's a lot. And I think as far as the fun throwable weapon, it's definitely more usable now. And it's been a lot of fun to, just mess around with. So highly recommend just giving it a try. Good to use. Okay. With stratagems, heavy machine gun got 25 extra rounds in the actual box magazine and 1 additional magazine on top of that. The Stalwart got a better ergonomics. I was hoping for something more or just different. Like with my chat, I was kind of telling them, I think it's going to become a primary weapon like in the first game, just because I feel like the Stalwart really just fails to make a really good impression on the hard difficulties, and it's more of just the fun weapon, and it like because in the hard difficulties, medium pen and the higher HP, the lower caliber of the weapon, a lot of primary weapons basically shine as bright as the stalwart, but their better ergonomics are nice. You know, it's more usable, and I'm sure people will enjoy it that much more. The recoilless got a high explosive round. I'll be honest, similar to the flak round, it's a little bit underwhelming, and I don't know how much I'm going to use it, but in a pinch, if you need like some AoE clear and all you have is your recoilless and you don't have any grenades, in a pinch, I think it could work fairly well. You know, a group of Devastators or, you know, a bunch of Bile Spears on top of each other or like some Brood Commanders, you know, it's fairly good, but I don't know how much I would use it over just using a grenade or my Purifier or like explosive crossbow, things of that nature. It's a cool addition, but it's essentially just, it turns it into an explosive RPG, and it does moderate amounts of damage in like a fairly big blast radius, but yeah, not super impactful. Autoc Cannon got the flak rounds, and it's basically just, you hold your reload button and you can swap between it like after every one. You don't have to like reload it or anything, which is really cool. They're just AoE rounds essentially, but they're not as good as the armor piercing is for AoE, and that might sound weird, but it sounds like it seems like the flak was more or less designed for shriekers in particular. I'm not really using it against like tier 1 bugs and whatnot, and I don't recommend it versus bots because their HP pools are so high. More or less, it seems like there is some amount of explosive damage, and then there's shrapnel, similar to like the Eruptor, but like less damage. So in most situations, use your traditional rounds, but if there's ever like something behind cover or you know, you just don't want to aim, the flak rounds have that going for it because they are proximity detonation airburst rounds with quite a bit of shrapnel. So fun to use, but not particularly effective. Heavy machine gun went up to 100 rounds in the magazine. No additional magazines though. So there's that. Airburst rocket launcher went down from 7-second reload to about 5-second reload. Good change, but still needs more. It's still not that great. And honestly, with the change to the Autoc Cannon, you could just use that instead of the Airburst rocket launcher. It's kind of a weird one. Okay, going into the Airburst Strike, as you've probably watched, if you have watched my videos in the past, I've talked about it pretty endlessly that like Airburst, I like that they decreased the cooldown, but I felt like it overkilled an area too fast, which meant like the rounds came in before new enemies were able to populate that area. And also it just felt like it was kind of lackluster and could use like an extra barrage. Hey, maybe they're listening. I don't know, but they actually did it. Extra salvo, so it does 4 salvos now, and it's an extra second before the next one comes in, which is fantastic for when you put it on a bug breach. That next wave coming out of the bug breach has time to spawn, or bots have time to walk into the next salvo, which is great. The next change was to the Eagle Strafing Run. It got more explosive damage and explosive radius, which is nice, but it's not exactly that noticeable. I still feel as if it needs maybe a wider arc and just more overall damage or more hit splashes at this point. It's good. I'm glad that they're, you know, continuing to, you know, improve upon it, but it still has the issue of like, you can see it in this picture of like, there are lots of gaps in between those hit splashes, which allow enemies to survive or just like not take that much damage. You know, I was still using it against like fabricators, and because fabricators only really take damage from the direct impacts, you still need to make sure the vast majority of the, you know, shots are actually landing on the fabricator in order to kill it. If you don't get a lot of shots on the fabricator, you're still only leaving it at like 75% HP or something like that. So still want more for the strafing run. Please continue. Please keep going. What do we got next? We have Jumppack. Jumppack got a 5-second reduction on the cooldown, down from 20 seconds to 15, which is great. Feels great. Now in these pictures, this is before the patch. It now goes like a good like 10 meters farther, maybe. I was doing some like distance checks, and if you like do it with a small sprint, ping your location where you leave, and then ping the location or like stand and turn around, it's about 40 meters. Whereas previously, I believe it was around like 25, 30 meters. So it's noticeable. You are zipping around the map a lot faster. You're more maneuverable. Feels great on bug missions. On bots, you know, you're still like gonna get shot out of the sky and ragdolled and stuff like that. So it's definitely harder to use on bot missions. But for those that enjoy the jetpack, is just more enjoyable. It's not quite in the spot that I want it to be. I want more maneuverability, like to, you know, midair, like be able to turn and shoot and, you know, accurately return fire, or like be able to stand still and just hold back and jetpack backwards in a way. Like just more maneuverability, I guess, and more variability in how I use it would be greatly appreciated. Still haven't touched EMS and smoke, unfortunately. Still want to see those. Shield Generator finally has received an awesome patch. So the radius has been increased by a lot. And it now self-heals like continuously. So as it's taking damage, it's healing quite a bit. They increased the healing and there's no longer a delay. It used to be when it took damage, there would be a delay before it started healing itself. Now they've like taken away the delay and it's just constantly regenerating. So the health of it hasn't essentially gone up, like the maximum health, but if it's taking a sustained amount of damage, it can kind of like out heal some of it at sometimes. If there's an overwhelming amount of damage, like a Factory Strider staring at it, it dies in 2 seconds. Like the main cannon turret and the 2 Gatling turrets, 100% wipe it still. But for like Devastator swarms and stuff like that, it does a fairly good job of staying alive. And I was worried that Rocket Devastators would just like eliminate it really fast, or like new Rocket Striders would just land a couple of rockets and it would just fall apart. But it actually survives pretty well. So highly recommend giving it a try. It's really good. And it's a much better spot. Not quite where I want it though. I still want to have a longer duration and that maximum health increased, so it has more survivability, but good change. Tes Tower is a menace now. Holy, the fire rate is awesome on it. As you can see in the pre-release video above, you know, it would have a delay between shots of about 3 seconds. Now it has a 1 second delay. It's rapid fire. So you can put this right next to a bug breach and it eliminates most enemies instantaneously. It's so good. And like, charges that come out of it are immediately stunned because of the changes that they made like 30 days ago. Oh, man, highly recommend using the Tes Tower. It was even fairly good against bots, getting out quite a bit of damage before it goes down. Not as good as it is against bugs, but you know, it's really good against bots. Highly recommend checking it out. What else? Let's see here. Our guard dog was not changed. The mines were not changed. It was the anti-tank mines. Anti-tank mines received a huge damage buff. They went from 800 damage to 1000 damage. Their AoE radius went down, but basically it's not going to be like what you see in that video right up above. If one mine hits a Hulk, fucker's dead, right? If one mine, or like if the charger stands on one mine, it's dead. And they also changed the pressure system on it. So a Helldiver doesn't set it off. Hunters don't set it off. You know, small enemies in general. They actually listed in the patch notes of it. It's like Hulks, Factory Striders, tanks, Bile Titans. I mean, if you can get a Bile Titan to actually stand on it, which is really rare, but you know, those are only enemies that are like large enough to actually set it off, which is really cool. So what they also did was Machine Gun Sentry, Gatling Sentry, Autoc Cannon Sentry, Rocket Sentry, all got reductions in their cooldown, which is really cool. I believe it was Gatling Sentry 30 seconds, Autoc Cannon 30 seconds, Rocket Sentry 30 seconds, and then the Machine Gun Sentry is down to, I think, at this point, it's down to, I think they were all 30 seconds. So the Machine Gun Sentry is down to 90 seconds, whereas the Gatling Sentry and a bunch of others are down to like 2 minutes, 30 seconds or so. Machine Gun Sentry has been feeling amazing with this new change. It previously was 2 minutes, now it's a minute 30. I feel like I have this all the time, especially when they increase the ammo supply of both the Machine Gun Sentry and the Gatling Sentry. Both are feeling really good on Terminids. Not as strong against bots because, you know, you have heavy devastators that just kind of laugh at your Machine Gun Sentry, but still you can throw it on like an off angle and like shoot it from behind, like get some shots from behind. It's really strong. I highly recommend giving them a try. Rocket Sentry, already like the GOAT Sentry at the moment. It's even better now that it has like 30-second reduction. Awesome change. Highly recommend. They didn't touch the Mortar Sentries, but that makes sense. They're already really good and they have such high sustain. They almost always last almost their entire duration if they don't get destroyed early. So it's not surprising that they didn't touch him. They finally did it with the guard dog. They made it ballistic, medium pen. Oh, finally. They did it. And they gave it a bigger magazine. It essentially is holding the Liberator penetrator. So it has a 45 round magazine and it has medium pen. It is a hell of a lot better for bugs and bots. Bots especially, because in so many situations it would just like aim at the chest of the Devastator and basically do nothing over the entire magazine. Now it actually does damage no matter what. And you'll get a lot of times where they still hit the high and they can kill it way faster. But in general, this thing is doing so much better. It's such a good change. And it differentiates itself from the Guard Dog Rover. Guard Dog Rover has unlimited ammo, whereas the Guard Dog has medium ammo, doing a little bit more damage per shot, obviously, having medium pen, and just like having that burst damage. Obviously, they also made the change of if you press the 5 key on mouse and keyboard, or I think it's the down button on your controller, you can actually recall it to your back. Unfortunately, it doesn't reload the guard dog. I was really hoping it would. Like you can force the reload. It doesn't do that, but at least in more stealthy situations, you can recall it to your back, so it's not like killing you or like, you know, alerting the enemies. After that, no other changes aside from like general patrol changes. Before, when you killed or like finished the main objective, you would immediately get way more patrols, no matter how many side objectives you already did. Way more patrols would start spawning immediately. And their reasoning for that was to give us like a better like evac, like it would be really like crazy and intense. But if you wanted to go do the rest of the map, it would make the rest of the mission way harder for you. So what they've done is that when you finish the main objective, that still happens, but it's only around the evac point. So the closer you get to the evac point, the more intense it gets, which is a good compromise. And I think it's a good change for anyone who's like, all right, we finished the main mission, let's go find samples, right? So good change. They also reduced how much damage bots are doing with their blaster fire. So the larger enemies and smaller enemies, it will take a little bit longer. I think it's around like 10% difference, 10 to 15% reduction on damage in that regard. And then they also increase the armor we get from light. I think it's around 8% more damage reduction, and on heavy, 5%. So those two armor classes are definitely feeling better. And it's an overall noticeable change. I am noticing like surviving better in automaton missions. So happy to see those happening. My overall thoughts on the patches are like very, it's glowing. I'm really happy. Definitely the game is feeling easier, right? As they continue to nerf enemies and buff us. But, you know, we're waiting for those new difficulties to come in and those new enemy types to add some spice to the end game. But, you know, overall, like the fun is there. Like there's a lot of options, a lot of fun things here. I'm hoping they continue to do buffs. You know, this is not the end, I'm sure. Ragdoll is still not fully addressed, but, you know, they've been making a lot of comments in the Discord channels that like, you know, there's still more to come, and they're just like working out like, you know, the different ways they want to implement it. You know, they've been doing polls and stuff like that to see what we think and what we want changed. They've done some in the last 30 days, but, you know, definitely hoping for more. If I had to like list out something that, you know, I felt like was kind of missing from here, was a little bit more implementation of like, you know, ragdoll resistance on heavier armor, or just like less ragdoll in general, or faster getting up, or like not forcing a stand up after you get ragdolled. Things of that nature would have definitely been icing on the cake, but good patch overall. Really happy. We're going to be continuing doing testing. For those wondering, where the hell are the tier lists? I'm sorry. Basically, I've been like busy with so many other games, and just like, you know, Space Marines 2 is there, and just I knew this patch was coming, so I definitely was like kind of hesitant about like rushing into a bunch of tier lists that I'm just gonna have to redo anyways, because like this, so much has changed here. So much has changed that I'm almost kind of glad that I didn't like rush into them. So in the next couple days, I'm going to be on stream doing testing and like just trying out so many things. So please, you know, consider, you know, dropping by. It's linked down in the description. I stream almost every morning aside from Mondays, HD2 to start off at least, and then maybe another game later. But for the most part, HD2. And we're going to be testing all of the changes and just like, how does it fit in with the existing weapons? So starting off, it'll be a bug stratagem update, bug weapons, bot stratagem update, and then bot weapons as well. So yeah, let me know down below what you guys think of the update. Consider joining the Discord as well. You guys can stay in contact with me and just figure out when I'm streaming. We do a live notifications there, and we're just talking about games in general, so not just Helldivers. Yeah, thanks YouTube. Consider dropping a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.